Today I'm talking to Ben White, who's very kindly taken some time to speak to us today. Ben, thanks so much for joining. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Now, considering your backgrounds that people don't know if they've just joined this right now, I'm going to ask you that old question that everyone worries
Yeah.
about when they go to interviews to kick us off, which is, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So real quick, if this is the first time you have ever seen me, I am Ben. YouTube people know me as Ben Talks Talent. I have a career interview prep channel with like over 600 free videos. So I do a lot of interview content. Outside of that, I work in recruitment. So my actual title is I'm a division vice president of a recruiting company. So I manage a couple different divisions in a recruiting firm. So that's me professionally. Personally, I'm married. I got a dog and a cat. I run marathons and I play chess. So that's like just high level about me.
Very cool, right? So you've got a diverse range of skills and interests. Can you tell us how did you get into recruitment? It was just the other day I was talking to somebody who was thinking of coming into recruitment from a totally different field. So I'm interested. How do you get it? How did you get into it?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think most people who find their way into recruitment have a funny story, but the common theme is they like accidentally found their way into it. Like 80% of people who are in recruitment. So the way it happened to me is I just got a call out of the blue. I had recently just got my bachelor's degree, and the owner of a firm called me. He found my resume in Career Builder, and the reason he called me is he looks for college graduates with a business degree who played sports. So I played rugby, and I had a bachelor's degree in business, and that was enough. He's like, okay, we're looking for people who have general business acumen and are competitive. And like that was my foot in the door. And that was 15 years ago. And I've been doing recruitment in some capacity, like every single day since then.
Very cool. I think it's interesting that he was looking for that characteristic of competitiveness or driven, maybe self-motivated, all those types of things.
Yeah. It's interesting because in that environment, like I've bounced around in recruitment. Like I've done agency, I've done in-house like corporate recruiting, and then I'm back on like the agency side. But that was a full desk. So he was looking to have someone come in and make 100 phone calls a day. Every single day and get told no, like a lot, like
98 calls, right? Out of the 100, right?
So, I think the competitive drive is something like he feels is necessary because it's like, you're going to have some really tough days. And I want someone who's going to be able to fight through that. And that first job was a really tough year and a half, but I learned so much. It was almost like getting a second bachelor's degree, but in recruiting. So it was really valuable.
What do you think were the biggest learnings you got early on, whether it be relationship building or understanding how to get applications that resonate with companies? What do you think?
Yeah. So the first thing I learned is like, you just absolutely can't be afraid. Like when you just start in recruiting, it is really easy to feel like I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm going to call a plant manager now and say, I can help you find a metallurgical engineer. And he can be like, Ben, I just looked at your LinkedIn. You've been recruiting for 6 weeks. What do you know about a metallurgical engineer? It's like, that's a very good point, but I can find that person. So I think, you can't be afraid. I think I learned a ton about the subtle differences in the language you use. So the difference between saying, would you mind sharing with me, are you interviewing elsewhere? To tell me how this opportunity compares with the other roles you're currently interviewing for. The scope of answers you will get will vary widely depending how you ask questions. So I think specific language is important. And then I think just like working hard. I think it is really easy to just like put in an average amount of work and have like a really average career. And like, if that's what you want, that's totally fine. But for me, I am a competitive person. I'm one of the more competitive people I know. And that was never going to be okay for me. So for me, I learned like the value of like just getting in and working hard. I always got there before him and I always left after him. I just wanted my boss to feel like, I don't know if Ben ever leaves. Like I've never seen him. Like he's here when I get here, he's here when I leave. So the value of working really hard early on.
Wow, they're great tips. Yeah. So working really hard, like being committed, showing you're dedicated.
Yeah.
And I love that point about the language. Yeah, the language really shapes the experience that we have
Yeah.
when we talk to other people and the respect that we convey. And yeah, and also I suppose it either can open up your mind or it can close your mind depending on how someone
Yeah.
phrases something. Can I ask you the in-house versus the agency type of recruitment? Um, how do you feel about each of those? Like, is there one you prefer more? Like, if somebody
Yeah.
was thinking, I don't know, maybe agency sounds a bit harder, but maybe more cash. Maybe in-house
Yeah.
sounds a bit more camaraderie, a little bit easier, a little bit more stability. You know, how would you
Yeah.
kind of talk someone through those two options?
Yeah, it's a really interesting topic, Ronan, because I would say that they are both very valuable and very different experiences. I think it's very easy for someone outside of the world of recruitment to look at those two titles and be like, well, those are essentially the same job. And there are certainly elements that are similar, but those two jobs are very, very different. So for me, I really enjoyed both. I'm on the agency side. So I started an agency. I worked for a Fortune 500 company in the recruiting department. I was like on a team of 15 and I really enjoyed it, but I found myself back here in the agency side. I do think, you said it. I think agency is harder. I do think it is a harder job. I do think more cash. I think you can certainly have more upside. You earn it. It is very challenging, I think, to make it when you're running a full desk. And, I think another big difference is where you do it, because you could be an agency and corporate, but one corporate job could be very different from another corporate job. Like that camaraderie doesn't necessarily exist. Sometimes you can work for a corporation and you think, okay, I'm going to feel like I'm part of this organization, but you are still viewed very much so as someone who is serving them and like you're there to like make sure they can find people, and that's true. But I don't know if the respect is always reciprocated. I had clients.
You could be a gun for hire.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had clients when I was a corporate recruiter who were very nice. And I felt like, yes, we are on the same team. I am helping them. They respect my efforts. And I had other ones where they're like, I think they just saw me as like, okay, this is my recruiter. Get me people and get out of my face. Which isn't a great feeling. So yeah, I say they're both worth doing. I'm glad I did them. I think it allows me to succeed with a more wide range of viewpoints and a better understanding. Like I think I can work with companies better, having been an internal recruiter and knowing their day to day much more effectively than I would have if I had never sat in the seat.
So yeah, absolutely. It gives you that perspective, right? It gives you that perspective because you've been, agency and internal, and also it's really important to understand the dynamics that goes on inside a corporate if you're going to be hiring and placing people in similar types of corporates. So that's really useful. I guess there's all sorts of hierarchies you have to navigate when you're internal, and you have to get the communication right and the politics right. Whereas when you're external, maybe it's much more, I don't know if this is the right word, but technical. Like you have to find the right person with the right capabilities, and you have to get them there on time. And maybe a bit more. Would you say the agency is more salesy, or would you say they're both equally sales orientated?
No, you're spot on. When I think about like a full desk recruiter, and a full desk recruiter means when you work for an agency, you're running your own desk. So you're doing all your own business development, and then you're trying to fill those roles. It is way more salesy than a corporate recruiter. A corporate recruiter isn't really salesy. I mean, you can certainly sell a candidate to a hiring manager. You can say, hey, you should talk to this person because they have A, B, and C. That's a little bit salesy, but it's an easy salesy. Making 70 business development phone calls a day feels a lot more salesy. So I would say this to anybody who is interested in recruiting. If you do not like the sales component potentially of the role, you do not want to do third party. Like a corporate recruiting role would be much better for you and more suited to what you're going to want to do on a day-to-day basis, because the agency role is incredibly sales related most of the time.
That makes tons of sense. And I think that's an important question to ask yourself. Do you want the trade-off for the high potential upside, or do you want the maybe the lower, more stable salary? Still probably a pretty good salary, but definitely not the same upside as you would get in the corporate role. So it's interesting. You've had these positive experiences and let's say less positive experiences, right?
Yeah.
does that, and obviously your interview channel is predominantly interview tips and techniques and strategies. Great content, by the way. I love the way you bring a ton of energy to it. Absolutely love it. Find myself watching it, even though I do videos as well. I'm like watching your stuff just because I'm so drawn into what you say.
Thank you.
So great entertainment value as well. But I guess when you're talking to candidates about culture, and you're talking, I know this is something you present on or you talk on in your speaking, but it's also, you've got a background in recruiting, and this is something you've experienced yourself, positive and negative. What sort of tips do you have for people to help them find the right culture fit?
Yeah, so I would say it is huge. It is like incredibly important. The way you feel at work is going to bleed over into the rest of your life. If you work for a great company, great working environment where you don't feel like terrible Sunday night, like you will be better off. Like there is a tangible value to that. So it is important. So let me just first and foremost say it is incredibly important to exist in a good environment relative to a bad environment. Now, what can you do to make sure you end up in one of those good environments? I think there's a handful of things, but I think most of it comes prior to your interview, and that's doing your research. So go online, go to Glassdoor, go to any place you can find reviews on an organization and read them. Now, if you find one review and it's bad, that's not the end of the world. But if you notice a theme, I wouldn't ignore that. I think in the interview, you can ask a variety of questions. You can ask questions to the hiring manager about how they lead, about the culture, about how they set their people up for success. I've made a ton of videos talking about different questions you can ask to make sure you're going into an environment that's good. So I would empty the clip there. I would absolutely ask all the questions you have. It is that important to make sure that you end up in a good environment. Now, if you want to be even more aggressive with it, and I always believe the best type of aggressive isn't passive aggressive, it's aggressive. So this is the type of thing I do. Like you can actually reach out to people on LinkedIn who work for the organization and say, hey, I'm considering entertaining a role at your organization. I'd love to take 5 minutes and network with you. You can actually engage with people and call them and be like, hey, what did you think about? You can do this with people who are currently working there, people who had worked there in the past. You can actually reach out to a few people and go, what is your experience like? How is working for this company? That is a lot more work, but I would never take a job without first doing research online. And then second, making sure I was asking all the questions I needed to ask in the interview to make sure I felt good about accepting a job with that company.
Yeah, 100%. I think they're great tips. Ask them questions. They should be open to answering your questions. And if they're not open to answering your questions, do you really want to work with somebody who's not even entertaining your questions before you've got the job? Never mind signing a contract. So I think that's a great one. One of the questions I encourage people to ask is to say, can you tell me what you enjoy most about working here? And
great question.
I want to know, does the person, do they light up and do they have a smile? Can they talk quickly, easily, and fondly about something that they enjoy in work? Or is it a struggle, right? Because if that question is a struggle to answer, I don't know if we want to be working there.
That's like one of 4 or 5 questions I would never leave an interview without asking. I always ask that question. I haven't interviewed for a while, but when I did, I would ask that question. I've been with my current company almost 9 years, but that's critical. And also, I agree with everything you said first. But in addition to that, if you want to write a thank you email after your interview, the information you get when they answer that question is great information to include in your thank you email to make it substantive, right? A bland thank you email, thank you for your time. If you have any questions, let me know, does very little for you as a candidate. But if you say, I also appreciate you talking about your time at your company. You mentioned A, B, and C, and that really resonated with me and made me more enthused about pursuing a role with you in your organization. That's a meaningful thank you email. So I love that question. I think it's critical.
That's great. I think the thank you email is something I haven't really recommended people to do, but I think that is I would say follow up, but usually, but that's usually before you're getting to interview. But the thank you email after the interview is a nice, meaningful gesture. Could I ask, do you feel, would you have any metrics on that, or do you have a good sense that really resonates with people? Maybe you've got particularly good responses from candidates.
Yeah. So here's how I answer any question about that, because I've made a few videos on thank you emails and I talk about them here and there in videos. And people go, Ben, are they necessary? I say, no, they're not necessary. Like, it's not 100% necessary. However, in the pursuit of like a really important role to you, right? Like maybe it's your dream job. Maybe you really need a job right now. Maybe it's like, oh man, if I could just work for this organization, it'd be amazing. For me, that would be like the Chicago Bears, or that would be like Disney, or maybe like Nike, right? Like if I'm interviewing for those companies for like a VP of talent acquisition, I'm pulling out the stops, and that person's going to get a thank you email. So that's how I say, like, is it necessary? No. But if you're going after a highly competitive role, do you not want to give yourself every advantage possible? I do. I'm the type of person to always stack the cards in my favor if I'm able to do so. And that's how I view it. The last thing I will say is I have never heard a hiring manager say to me in like 15 years of doing this every single day, Ben, I don't want to move forward with this person. They wrote me a thank you email. I've never have heard a hiring manager say to me, man, this person wrote me a great thank you email, Ben. I think they're really interested in my job. And that has mattered to many, many, many hiring managers over 15 years. So is it a must? No. But if I'm trying to be VP of all things non-player related for the Chicago Bears, you better believe I am sending a thank you email to Mr. Kevin Warren. Like he's getting So anyway, that's my view on it.
Maybe we'll send them this video and that will act as an application.
There you go. There you go.
No, absolutely. That's a great one. And it's just, you're keeping your application and yourself front of mind. It's a simple bit of marketing. You've already met them. Why not just double down and send that quick follow up? And then, they can just think, oh yeah, maybe I should follow up with that person and give them a call. So
I don't think there's a single hiring manager in the world who doesn't want to hire someone who wants their job. Every hiring manager wants to hire someone who wants their job and is passionate about their job. And like so much of interviewing is saying the right things, having the right background, but some of it is also making the hiring manager feel like this is the right candidate. Mm-hmm. And part of that is letting them know, like, yes, I want this job without eroding your leverage, because you still want to get a great offer. So there's a right way and a wrong way to do that. But anyway, I think it just doesn't hurt.
I have so many questions for you. This is great. You've a fantastic energy and positivity when you come across on video, when I'm talking to you now. I love it. And also in your videos, you talk about tactics and stuff a lot, which are super important too. And I just wonder, do you ever feel that people know what to say? They know how to say it. They say all the right words, but the energy isn't, or the passion, like you were saying, isn't necessarily there. And it's like, I can line up the right words and I can almost read it off a teleprompter in front of me. We've got the tech, but that energy has to come through as well, right?
People buy passion. Okay. Like at the end of the day, like people, how you perceive someone's message matters. And if I like said to you, like, oh, I really like your podcast, you'd be like, okay, well, that lacked a little bit of energy. Like podcast, like that is believable. I forgot the study. I made a video on it one time, but like communication, like a very small percentage of it is actually what you say. A bigger percentage of it is how you say it and your body language while you say it. So as a candidate, I would be very cognizant of those cues. How you sound and how you look when you're saying it really matters. And that is like wildly irritating to people who are like introverts. They're like, well, Ben, like you're crazy extroverted. Great advice on something that's super easy for you and super hard for me. And I empathize with that. But that is the game. When it comes to interviewing, it does matter that people feel like you have passion for their job, for your career, for their company, for the role, Yeah.
You got to communicate that. You got to show that you want it, because people feel it.
Yeah.
Bringing enthusiasm to a conversation is a great first step. It's a great first impression. People notice that, they feel that. So, one of the things I encourage people to do, and I'll be honest, like I have very little uptake on this particular tip. So I'm interested in your perspective. It's adding a video introduction to the application, a short 1 minute, 90-second clip. It's kind of like the gist of the cover letter, but a little bit of a summary. This is who I am. This is what I do. This is why I'm interested in your role. And what are your thoughts on short video applications in addition to your application?
It's interesting because I feel like the industry is like slowly moving that way. Like I feel like So my company that I work for a company called Titus Talent Strategies. And in our interviews, when we interview a candidate to submit them to our partners, we will actually have the audio recording of candidates answering their answers when we interview them prior to submittal. So our partners are getting like how they sound. You can hear the passion, right? That's only one step removed from an actual video. And you see, you have Spark Hire where people are doing video interviews. So like, I think there's a lot of value in that. So there's like a big part of me that likes it. There's another part of me where I'm like, there are some old school hiring managers who might not know what to feel about that. They might go, well, what is this? I don't know how I feel about that. And that's just probably from my experience of dealing with so many hiring managers in so many industries. But I don't know, I kind of like it. And I think 5 years from now, it'll be a lot less of like an out of the box suggestion than it will be in 5 years. I think video and access to video and the tools and the systems that both internal and external search firms are becoming equipped with, you'll see a lot more of that. So I kind of like it, but I think how it's perceived is going to depend on the hiring manager.
Or maybe it's a case of it depends on the nature of the industry you're going for. For example, if you're going to a very conventional, a sort of, let's say, state agency that's been doing the same thing in Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel for the last 50 years, compared to if you're going to a tech startup that's rough, that's ready, that's like trying to be as innovative as possible. They're kind of different brands, they're different messages. So maybe it works depending on the environment, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like a know your audience thing. You're talking about a marketing job, a marketing firm. Like, I think that stuff really plays well. But like, if you're an accountant and you I don't know, first of all, I don't know how many accountants are lining up to actually send videos themselves during an interview process. No offense to my accountant friends out there, but like, how would an accounting manager receive that? They'd probably be like, what is this? So yeah, I think you're totally right. Know your audience, but for the right person, I think it would absolutely hit.
Yeah. So maybe not an accounting job or a job in a bureaucracy, but maybe more of a marketing job or social media job. Or if there's anything where you have to put your face on a video, like if you're doing YouTube for a company, I think sending the video application makes tons of sense.
Yeah. Well, I also think like some of the interviewing is like you want to get in where you fit in, right? And if like that's the type of person you are, don't you want to work for a company where they get it and they go, oh, cool. Yeah, I'm gonna work for this person. I'm interested in that. So like sometimes we work so hard to like portray something that we're not. And then we end up working for a company we feel like I just don't fit in here. And that's like a selective thing. And that's a luxury to be as selective as that, I think. But if that's kind of like how you are, like the right companies that might be a great fit for you will probably dig it.
Yeah, 100%. If that's how you are, it's good to portray how you are. It's different when you're at the start of your career, when maybe you have to hustle a bit more. Maybe you have to just do what you need to do to get your foot on the career ladder, to get a job, to get some income coming. But as we all continue and progress, we want to be a bit more selective. And that might even mean if you don't match, you don't match. And saying no to that cultural fit. But that's kind of a hard thing to do, isn't it? Because people will be like, but the cash is good. Do I really have to say no if this is a terrible culture fit?
Yeah, well, I mean, I always say yes. I think there is a tangible value you can place on having a job where when you close your laptop at the end of the day, you still have peace of mind. And so I think some of that you just have to learn and experience, and I've worked for and my culture right now, I think is a great culture. So like, I never have the Sunday scaries. But I have worked for places where I was legitimately concerned Sunday night. And the closer I got to like going to sleep, the worse I felt. There's a value for that. But you're right. It's in stages, right? When you first are trying to get in the door, maybe you're willing to accept jobs you wouldn't accept later in your career. If you find yourself to be unemployed, you're like, I don't have the luxury of being picky here. I'm going to take a job that pays the bills and puts food on the table. But if you're a candidate who is employed, and you're looking for that next step and you're like reasonably happy where you are, like I would absolutely ask all the questions and be picky, because nothing is worse than leaving a good job. Given your 2 weeks, you start like in your new place and you go, I have made a massive mistake. This place is terrible. Like that's a bad spot to be in.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and very hard to reverse out of it when you've made all decisions and signed contracts and finished contracts and so on.
Oh
Definitely,
yeah.
yeah, 100%. Getting that culture fit
Yeah.
right, and it gets more and more important as you progress. I
Yeah.
think. I gotta ask you about
Yeah.
AI in recruitment. You get
Yeah.
asked this all the time, no doubt. People
Yeah.
are wondering if their CVs are getting looked at, or are recruiters just putting
Mhm.
it through the big AI, the big
Yeah.
ATS machine.
Yeah.
Can you tell us how's that work? How's that working when someone sends in an application to you? Are you looking at it first? Or is it going through a screening software?
Yeah, really good question. So, one, my company actually never posts jobs. Like we are pure hunters. So
Or
when our
headhunters? Okay.
clients come to us and they go, "We need this person," we don't have a database. We don't post it online. We go and find those people. Okay, so we are kind of like almost like agnostic to like applicant tracking system. But what I can tell you is I worked for a Fortune 500 company, and if you find me on LinkedIn, you can see which company this is for what it's worth. But when I worked for this company as a corporate recruiter, it was a very popular company. Like in the city where I worked, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, right? It is one of the top companies in that area. And when we posted a job, we got a lot of applicants. Okay. And every single applicant would receive a score based on how closely their resume aligned with the job description. And if I have 100 candidates, I'm only looking at people who are in like the top 10% of those applicants. I'm only looking at like the top 20 matches. So maybe top 20%. So I'm only looking at the best candidates who are most aligned. So doesn't ATS sometimes make it so a human never even looks at your resume? 100%. Like that absolutely happens. And this was 10 years ago. Like this is a decade ago. So people applying now, are you being screened out by AI? Like certainly.
Yeah.
Like yes,
Yeah.
I would say without a shadow of a doubt. You're also going to find yourself competing against candidates who are using AI to mass apply to a bunch of roles. So if you're not using AI, but other candidates are, and they're like, okay, AI, find me a bunch of jobs, customize my resume, and apply to a bunch of those jobs. And what they're really doing is they're muddying the waters of the traditional job flow, interview, job offer acceptance, like, traditional pathway. It's getting really muddied. So it is very interesting. But to directly answer, like, does AI screen out your resume? Like, beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. That's happening. It seems right everywhere,
Yeah.
and it's only going to continue. Right, that once this door is open, this door is not going to be.
Yeah.
It's not going to be closed again. So it makes you wonder. I suppose the thing about people applying with AI is sometimes AI, in my experience, has a tendency to make things more average, more neutral, more bland.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're putting an application in, typically we want to make it stand out. We want to make it excel. We want to make it look a little bit different. So sometimes people come to me and they're like, I used AI, and I'm like, yeah, it's not really saying that much. We gotta really sell exactly what you've done before. But then the other thing is, that's why I'm thinking the video and the photos and anything else that will add a little, like if you're sending in a portfolio, or if you're sending in a video application, or if you're doing anything that was going to put you ahead of people who've just gone in with the AI, I think that's going to be a new way to stand out in. But it's getting harder and harder for people, right?
Yeah. Well, standing out is hard because if you what I'm really this is the way I view AI in recruitment right now. Like, first of all, none of the systems are matured enough so they can feel like you're getting a perfect finished product. Like, I truly feel that way. Like, might it do a good job? Yes, but it's not perfect yet. The other thing that is happening is you've got AI interacting with AI. You've got on the corporate side, AI screening candidates, okay, and like trying to coordinate. You've got on the candidate side, AI applying to way more jobs than humans ever had. 10 years ago, if I wanted to apply to 5 jobs, that was going to take me a while. Today, in that same amount of time, I mean, it's conceivable that AI could apply to 50 jobs for you. Now, what happens when you apply to 50 jobs with a pretty good resume? Well, you might get a bunch of calls for interviews. So as a candidate, you might not even attend some of those. You might get, yes, we want to interview you. And you go, well, you know what? These 7 other companies have already responded to me, and I think they're better opportunities. So it's just creating all this like busy work and inefficiencies in the process. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out over the next 5 years as both parties are using this AI, and then they're missing each other like trains in the night, because it's like, oh, well, I'm going to apply to those other, I'm going to interview with these other jobs that I got interviewed for prior to your AI responding to me saying you want to interview me.
Wow, yeah.
These
You
things would get really messy.
You're totally right. I never thought about it like that. You're just going to create all this extra noise that is not
Right.
necessarily bringing extra value to the process, right? We're just tons
Totally.
more applications, tons more jobs going out there, everything looking pretty good.
Yeah.
It's almost like analogous to, people on Tinder just continuously
Yep.
swiping because, if that person isn't perfect, the next one behind. But then when the recruiter or the hiring manager calls you, if you've put in 50 applications that are all super tailored using AI, do you even
Yep.
know what job they're talking about? Can you even convince
No.
them that you're really interested in it? Or is it like,
Right.
which
And
job?
do you even take that interview because you're already interviewing with ones that maybe got to you sooner? So
Right.
then, like, imagine you're a corporate recruiting, you go, okay, we sifted through 250 resumes. We found the 5 perfect people. We're going to have our AI scheduling tool reach out to them. Well, those 5 candidates might just ignore you because they have already received other interview invitations and they're further along in the process. And they're like, I'm not even going to do that. You think candidates will ghost you now? They'll ghost you more if they have a bunch more interviews they're doing because they've gotten in process with other companies faster. So sometimes it is absolutely going to work. You tailor your resume, you get an interview, you're identified as a top candidate, you interview, match made in heaven, offer accepted, boom. But a lot of times it's just going to be an unmitigated disaster. And it'll be very interesting to watch.
Be very interesting. Let's see. Let's see how it plays out over the few years. You also have a very prosperous YouTube channel. You've got tons and tons of followers, almost 50K followers just on the channel alone. It's kind of like, it seems to me like it's this idea that you've got your own personal brand within your company's brand as well, which is super cool.
Yeah.
Or I've also heard it described as, when you've got a personal brand, you almost got 2 careers simultaneously. You've got your own personal brand career and you've got this other one. Can you tell me what you feel like? Is that the way you set it out? Did you set out to create a personal brand, or was it like Ben Talks Talent, by the way, for anyone who's looking for it? Did you set out to create it as a personal brand, or is it more you wanted to give tips to clients who you're working for, and that was just the most efficient way?
When the pandemic hit, I started like just writing a little bit of content on YouTube. I have a background in theater, so I'm not shy about getting in front of a camera, about talking. So I started making videos and uploading them to LinkedIn. And this was years ago when like LinkedIn was like, there was less people creating, I think, on there. And I started to get comments where people were like, hey, didn't you make a video about this? Could you share that with me? And I'm actually a huge YouTube fan myself. Like I watch a ton of YouTube. Like I'm a big YouTube fan. Like I could tell you my 5 favorite travel content creators, my 5 favorite chess content creators. Like I'm like a big fan. And I was like, you know what? I should do it. And I said, you know what? Here's what I'll do. I'll upload 3 videos a week for 1 year. So, I'll make like 160 videos in the next year. And at the end of that year, I'll evaluate whether I want to continue doing it because I know it's a long game. And a year later, I was like, no, this is great. I was already part of the YouTube partner program and all that kind of stuff. So it was really good. But I always viewed it as 1, I just started creating content, and 2, it'll be my only personal brand. Like a personal brand is something you can bring with you. It's something you can bring with you for the rest of your career. But it also helps with my job. People sometimes find me through there, and it helps with what I do for the company I work for. And my company, to their credit, has been very supportive. They're totally cool with me doing my own thing, me doing that. But I do a video podcast style interview sometimes on Ben, on my channel. And a few of those people actually came and were guests on a Titus event for my company. I was like, hey, we're doing an event in Florida. Do you guys want to come and be a part of it? And we had 3 people on a panel for a speaking engagement that my company did. I was the host of it. And they actually came and did that. So there's been some overlap, but for me, it was always personal brand is something you can bring with you for the rest of your career. And it's kind of independent, but there occasionally is some synergy.
Yeah, so it's a great win-win in your current company, right? And it's great that they facilitate you, they help you do it. It's a different skill set, though, isn't it? Producing content for YouTube.
Yeah. It's so funny because I've learned so much about thumbnail creation, pacing in videos, editing. like SEO. Like I have learned a ton, but I run a lot, and I run almost predominantly inside. So I run on a treadmill. I have a Peloton treadmill. It is amazing. I'm not sponsored by them. They just make a great treadmill. It is worth the money. But when I run, I actually watch educational content. So like right now, I'm actually kind of watching Vikings, the series. So like I'm watching that. But when I'm not watching that, I'm either watching YouTube content, like how to grow your YouTube channel, SEO content on YouTube, or I'm watching chess content. I will watch a good amount of like chess content too. But I'm one of those people who's always learning. So I have learned a ton about YouTube from YouTube.
Yeah.
It's a totally different skill set.
It's a fascinating platform. You know, it started off as this video hosting platform, and now it's this like business and this ecosystem and this community management system within itself, where people are running 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 channels, monetizing it, doing super well. But then you've also got these people on the other end who are like pouring their heart and soul in. And like, you know, it's like if they were paid, if that was their full-time job, it would be slave labor, you know? So that's the other side of it. You know what I mean? It's like, are these big companies like Google and YouTube, are they just getting like really cheap slave labor? And then the guys at the top are absolutely crushing it. So, you know, I wonder about some of the content creation sometimes, but I think if you've got a strategy set up, which you do to make it profitable indirectly and for you to benefit personally directly, then that's a win-win really, isn't it?
Yeah. And I have an efficient system. I don't spend a lot of time doing it. I batch create content. Like I have a few different things set up to help me think of ideas. I will film like 3 videos on a Saturday morning. It'll take me like 30 minutes to film 3 videos.
Oh, okay.
And then editing them, I edit them on my phone. So like sometimes like my wife and I, like we're going out to the mall. She's in a changing room trying on clothes and I'm editing a video. So I've turned it into an incredibly efficient machine for myself where I don't spend a ton of time. It is like incredibly easy. Canva is great. Thumbnails take me all of 90 seconds to make it like my average thumbnail. So like I just, for myself, it is not a lot of time invested. And I'm growing, you know, my channel 1,400 subscribers a month, and it's just pretty continual. Just and like slowly incremental growth. Like a few years ago, it wasn't that much a month, but it's just continues to grow.
Yeah, that's great. And I see you've started your podcast recently as well. So that's another cherry on top, right?
It's just kind of a different way to do it. I thought it would be fun having like conversations and learning from different experts. And, you know, it's just for me, it's adding to my content mix. And like, I don't think it'll ever be my full thing. I really like the educational videos. I like making the company specific guides where I make like 4 to 5 videos on how to get hired at a company. I love doing that, but I also really like talking to people and just learning about their career and getting advice from them for people. So yeah, it's just like an extra added thing that I've really enjoyed.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, good on you, and sensational growth over the past few years. So you can see your hard work and dedication is paying off.
Thank you.
One of the questions that we always ask people in interviews is, can you tell us what your plan is over the next 5 years, or where do you see yourself in 5 years? You've got your growing YouTube channel, you've got your podcast, you've got your headhunting recruitment role. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Yeah, you know, I'm doing a lot of the same thing. Like for me, my goal in YouTube, like once I realized, okay, this works, like about 9 months into creating videos, I met the threshold to be added to the YouTube partner program. So my channel got monetized. At that point, I go, okay, I can do this. Like I can do this. I'm pretty confident. So then it wasn't about like, well, what can I make on my first YouTube check? For me, it was like, well, what could this channel be for me in 5 years? You know? And, you know, I still view it that way. I'm like, okay, so right now, I'm getting, 10,000 watch hours every 28 days. I'm like, it's growing. I'm like, so what could it be in 5 years? So for me, 5 years, just continue, grow the channel. I want to continue. I mean, 5 years for me, I profile one company a month where I make a guide on how to get hired at that company. So for 5 years from now, I should have 60 more companies profile. I imagine the channel will be at over 100,000. So somewhere behind me, there'll be a silver YouTube plaque. For my company, I'm growing out like a second division. I mean, 5 years from now, hopefully I'm on to my third or fourth. So I have like, maybe like 100 recruiters under me in various geographic areas. Hopefully I'm still running marathons, and hopefully I'm at 2000 in chess. I guess that's like the 5 year.
That's awesome. The 5 year plan. Yeah. And you know what? This video clip will be awesome to look back at in 5 years. You can put a little clip on your YouTube when you reach that 100,000. Maybe it'll be in 2 years. Maybe you'll get there even quicker. Who knows, right?
Yeah, you never know.
But I think it's fascinating. Like, if you think where YouTube has come from in the last 15, 20 years to where it is now, where is that going to be? Like, it's on all of our smart TVs now. It's on all of our phones.
Yes.
Where is that going to be in 10 years? Is it going to completely take over from terrestrial TV? And if you keep plugging away, I mean, I'm on YouTube as well. If we keep plugging away for another 5 or 10 years, where's that gonna end up, and how's that channel going to develop? So I think it's really a fascinating thing to watch.
Yeah. One of my favorite things about YouTube is I feel really resolute that I've aligned myself with the right social media. Like, you can look, and other social medias I think will come and go. They'll peak and they'll subside. But YouTube is the world's second biggest search engine. And when you look at YouTube TV, it wasn't around 5 years ago. Now it's doing deals with the NFL. So where will their content be, and where will they stand in the landscape? And I personally just have a high degree of confidence that YouTube will continue to grow, and having a powerful YouTube channel will be more valuable 5 years from now than it will have been 5 years ago. Like, I believe in the momentum. So, and I love that it's like just free education for so many people. Like me as a creator, I think I benefit wildly, and I love it. And I love being able to help people, and I get the messages. My favorite messages to get on YouTube are, Ben, I watched your Apple videos, and you helped me get hired at the Apple store. Now I'm using your Tesla video, and you're going to help me get hired at Tesla. Like, seeing someone come back at different stages of their career to make those steps. Like, every time I get one of those messages, I feel like so pumped. But like, for the consumer of YouTube, like, you can learn so many things for free on YouTube. And I just think that's amazing and powerful.
Yeah, it's so incredible, isn't it? Like a free university where you can learn anything you want from experts all over the world, anytime you want. And if you miss something, it's not like a university course. If you miss something, just go back, watch it all over again. Watch 10 other people telling you the same thing in different ways. Like, it is absolutely just phenomenal. It's one of our greatest resources for sure. One analogy of social media I heard, which I thought was which I read from Russell Brunson, the digital marketing guy. He does all the funnel videos. He was talking about how, like, Twitter has taken over from newspapers, Instagram has taken over from reality TV, and then YouTube is taking over from TV. So it's kind of like just showing how previous mediums are now mapping onto these new mediums. So it's like, choose which medium. If you're a journalist, you're on Twitter or you're on X. But if you're a video person, you're on YouTube or you're on Instagram. Or if you like reality TV, you're on Instagram. Typically.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, using that analogy, I think I'm in the right place. I mean, I'm on X, but I'm mostly on X to consume Chicago Bear content.
You're super fun, huh?
But yeah, well, I mean, it depends. It hasn't been super fun, but that's my own fault for being a Bears fan. But yeah, like I love YouTube, and even if my channel like shut down tomorrow and I like didn't have a channel, like, I would actually still love YouTube just as like a consumer of YouTube. So for me, it was very natural to make a channel.
Very cool. Very cool. So look, before I let you go, there's just maybe one or two other questions I wanted to just pick your brain on. When people go to recruiters, often my concern is that maybe they're not prepared. They're going to the recruiter and they're looking for the recruiter to solve all their problems. What would your advice be for someone going to a recruiter and you want them to come to you prepared? You want them to, have their ducks in a row. Would you have 2 or 3 tips you would give to somebody?
Yeah. It's so interesting. This is something I could probably talk about for like an hour. Because one, are you going to a corporate recruiter or are you going to an agency recruiter? Because the way an agency recruiter works is they don't find people jobs, they find people for companies. And I think a lot of people have a misconception of that. Like if you go to an agency recruiter and go, hey, I am a mechanical engineer. I've got 5 years experience and I'm looking for a job that's going to pay me blank. Can you find me a job? That recruiter might not have any of those jobs and they're probably not going to go find any of those jobs for you. So if you want to network with like an agency recruiter, like I think one, find a good recruiter. So look them up on LinkedIn and make sure they're someone worth working with. They've got recommendations, they have connections that are over 500 people. They've been at their current company for a while. Make sure they're worth working with and come there prepared to tell them exactly what you want, have done some homework of companies you might be interested in, and be able to articulate your value proposition. Like, why are you a compelling candidate? That way, maybe they are willing to represent you. If you go to a corporate recruiter, and this is way more common, I would say, where they work for a company you're interested in, you want to reach out to them. One, have a specific job in mind. Two, be very well versed on the company, what they do, recent company events, and company like culture / values, right? Like be informed, and be very intentional and specific. And one of the biggest mistakes I would say that I saw as a corporate recruiter, people would email me their resume and be like, hey, I'm interested in your company. Do you have any jobs for me? And like, that's not going to work. Like, so like you need to be specific and intentional. Like recruiters get those messages all the time. But if you reach out to them, they like, hey, Ben, thanks for accepting my request on LinkedIn. The reason that I reached out to you is because I actually really admire your company. I've been working in this industry for this many years. I have this background and I'm interested in this specific job. If you're not the right person, could you point me in the direction of the person I should talk to about this role? That is actionable. And that is likely to get you some actual traction and some help. But if you just send them a resume and go, hey, do you have any jobs? Yeah. It's like, well, yeah, I've got a bunch of jobs, but what are you talking about?
yeah, exactly. It's like, very few people want you to present them with a complex problem to solve with no clear upside. So if you just say, I actually don't know what I want to do. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what my direction is. I don't know what I should do next. I don't know how. By the way, here you go, Ben. Here's my CV. Yeah. See if you can figure it out because I haven't been able to figure it out. That's not a very easy thing for you to get excited about as a recruiter. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's just not going to work unless you have like an incredibly niche skill set. If you are a welding engineer and in the United States, they only have 4 universities that graduate degreed welding engineers, and you apply to a company that needs welding engineers, that will work. If you are a regular person like the rest of us who doesn't have like an incredibly niche role, like that tactic just won't work for you. Yeah. So I think it depends. Like if you have an incredibly unique skill, you will get lucky on occasion. For the rest of us, you're going to need to be specific.
Yeah, absolutely. Be specific about what you want, what your priorities are, what your skills are, the types of roles you're looking for. Even your timeline, I guess, is going to be pretty important, right? Because if someone comes to you and they think, I'm thinking of acting in this in 6 months, that's very different to like 6 days, right?
Yeah, I'll be like, well, reach out to me in like 5 months and 1 week.
Then we'll get talking.
What are you doing now? Hi, nice to meet you. Talk to you in a half a year. Yeah. I agree.
That's fantastic. Ben, it has been a pleasure and a real view inside the mindset and the skills and background of a recruiter. So really fascinating to talk to you. For anyone who's interested, Ben does fantastic videos on how to get hired by specific companies. Ben Talks Talent is the YouTube channel. Highly recommend you check it out. Tons of videos on interview tips, techniques, strategies, all that sort of really good stuff. And he'll give you the exact same enthusiasm that you heard on the podcast today. Ben, thanks a mil for coming on to share all your insights. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I loved it. The time flew by, so I appreciate it, Ronan.
Thanks so much.